Your late evening Boxing Day news now with Reeta Chakrabarti.
Tonight, police in Merseyside arrest 2 people over the murder of a woman on Christmas Eve. 26-year-old Ellie Edwards was at the pub with her sister and friends when she was shot in the head.
You know, this pub, it's a nice pub. You know, you never hear of any trouble. I've got a 21-year-old son and, you know, it's devastating, to be honest.
We'll bring you all the latest, also on the programme. At least 50 people are now known to have died as the severe Arctic freeze continues across the US and Canada. Russia says 3 people are dead after a drone attack on one of its air bases, and it blames Ukraine. And we hear the story of the Ukrainian teenager in safe exile in the UK, but longing for home. Good evening. 2 people have been arrested in connection with the shooting of a woman in Merseyside on Christmas Eve. They include a 30-year-old man arrested on suspicion of murder and a 19-year-old woman on suspicion of conspiracy to murder. Police today named the victim as 26-year-old Ellie Edwards. 4 men were also injured, 1 critically in the attack, which took place inside the Lighthouse pub in Wallasey Village. Our North of England correspondent Fiona Trott reports.
A young woman shot and killed whilst celebrating Christmas with family and friends. Ellie Edwards was at the Lighthouse pub in Wallasey Village when a man opened fire at the entrance. Merseyside police say they do not believe she was a target. Today, around 30 relatives arrived at the scene to lay flowers. The police say what they're going through is incomprehensible. One of the cards reads, "To my beautiful Ellie, you are the light of my life. You will never be gone. Mum and Dad." The killing took place at a family pub at the heart of the community. Local residents have described their shock.
Things like this don't really happen on the Wirral, so I think everyone's shocked.
You don't expect it on your own doorstep. You know, this pub, it's a nice pub. You know, you never hear of any trouble. I've got a 21-year-old son and, you know, it's devastating, to be honest.
Forensic teams have been searching the area throughout the day. And then tonight, police activity across the city. This was 2 addresses in the Tranmere area. It was around this time 2 nights ago that Ellie Edwards was killed. 4 men were also injured in the shooting. One of them is in a critical condition in hospital. People here tell us none of this seems real, but there's one family on Merseyside tonight who are struggling to comprehend this even more, and that's the family of Ellie Edwards, a beautician whose life and career was stopped by what police are describing as a cold-blooded shooting. Fiona Trott, BBC News, Wallasey Village.
At least 50 people are now known to have died due to the severe Arctic freeze that continues to affect the US and Canada. One of the worst hit areas is the city of Buffalo in New York State, where the governor called the storm an epic once-in-a-lifetime event and said that President Biden had offered the full force of the federal government to help support them. Emily Unia has the latest.
The Arctic storm pummeling the US and Canada caused Christmas chaos for millions. Thousands of flights were cancelled and roads and railways were closed or impassable, preventing people from reaching friends and family. Emergency services battled treacherous conditions to carry out rescues. Fatalities have been confirmed across the US. One of the worst hit areas was New York State, especially in Buffalo and Hamburg in Erie County. Snow-blanketed streets and driving was banned. More than 24 people are now known to have died in the greater Buffalo region.
Anyone who declares victory and says it's over, it is way too early to say this is at its completion of, maybe the severity is downplaying now, and right now it's not as bad as it had been over the last couple of days, but it is still a dangerous situation to be out.
Rolling blackouts left more than 1.5 million people without power on Christmas Day. Connections are now steadily being restored. In South Florida, iguanas froze and fell from trees. They won't get moving again until temperatures rise and they can thaw out. Much further north, stunning ice formations appeared on Lake Michigan. And although the storm is starting to ease, freezing conditions are still expected for some time to come. Emily Junior, BBC News.
A Russian airbase has come under attack for the second time in less than a month. The Defence Ministry in Moscow said it was targeted by a Ukrainian drone, which killed 3 of its servicemen. Ukraine hasn't officially admitted to the attack, but a spokesman said it was the result of what Russia was doing on Ukrainian soil. The Engels base is host to long-range Russian strategic bombers, the type of which have launched many missile attacks on Ukraine. It's in the Saratov region, which is 300 miles south of Moscow, from where our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg sent this report.
Caught on CCTV. An explosion at a Russian airbase. Russia says it shot down a Ukrainian drone, but that 3 Russian soldiers were killed. Engels Air Base is deep inside Russian territory, hundreds of miles from the Ukrainian border. The base hosts long-range bombers, which are believed to have launched missile attacks against Ukraine. State TV reacted to the news with a familiar warning to Kiev. Russia, she says, would exact revenge by carrying out more strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure.
Russia can rattle those sabres and flex its muscles, but it doesn't change the fact that what happened at Engels Air Base is embarrassing for the Kremlin. For the second time in less than a month, what is an important military installation has come under attack.
Quite a contrast to the image of military might that President Putin's been portraying in recent days. The Kremlin leader has promised his generals all the resources they need for the war in Ukraine. He's determined to secure something he can present as a Russian victory.
Putin is not going to back off, and nobody else is going to give him a reason to back off. And therefore, he's going to take steps necessary for him to win, whatever that victory may mean for him.
But 10 months after Russia invaded Ukraine, there is no sign of that victory. Instead, the war the Kremlin started is moving closer to home. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
Let's take a look now at some of the other stories making the news today. South Korea says it scrambled fighter jets and fired warning shots after 5 drones crossed over its border from North Korea this morning. Flights at airports in Seoul were briefly suspended after it was reported that one of the drones had flown close to the capital. Police say a 10th person has died as a result of a huge explosion at a block of flats in Jersey early this month. Kathleen McGuinness, who was 73, lived next door to the building in St Helier, which was destroyed in the blast. King Charles's first Christmas message attracted the highest viewing figures this century for the monarch's traditional festive address. More channels than ever carried the 3 p.m. speech, and there was a combined audience of 10.7 million. The number of people visiting the shops for Boxing Day sales is up on last year, but it still hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels. Figures for today already show that so-called footfall is still 30% down compared to 2019. Although there are the usual discounts on the high street, households are of course now being squeezed by the high cost of living, as Katie Austin reports.
Oxford Street in central London filled up as the day went on, as shoppers hunted for bargains.
You come out for the sales? Yeah, I always come out. It's my birthday today, so. And I don't think it's as busy as it used to be. It used to be a lot busier before. People had a lot more bags before, so.
Shops are starting giving sales maybe a bit earlier than usual. That's what we've heard, but there are still quite a few discounts.
So what have you found? Anything good?
Just socks so far.
A company that tracks how many people are out at shopping destinations says compared to last year when COVID badly affected trading, it's an optimistic picture. Numbers are up. However, footfall hasn't recovered to what it was before the pandemic.
It's 30% lower than it was on Boxing Day 2019, so it is significantly lower. But we mustn't forget that there is a train strike. Then there's also attached, obviously, to the cost of living crisis. People are a little bit more cautious.
These days, not all retailers open on Boxing Day. Some started their sales well before Christmas, and more customers choose to buy online. But for this big shopping centre in Liverpool, it's still a crucial week.
It's very important for retailers and ourselves. Boxing Day gives the retailers the chance to clear some of that stock that they perhaps didn't sell before Christmas. Boxing Day is actually one of the quieter days of the week. It builds up throughout this week into some quite extraordinary numbers.
Cost of living pressures are expected to put a dampener on spending, but the manager of this store is optimistic.
I think people are now looking into what they're buying a lot more than they used to be, but we are still trading quite well as a lot of retailers. You look around the high street and you still see a large amount of people around spending money as well.
After a tricky year, retailers hope the big discounts can draw in much-needed customers. Katie Austin, BBC News.
Now, in a year of momentous change and challenges, nowhere in Europe has seen people's lives devastated as they have been in Ukraine. Those displaced by the war include millions of young Ukrainians, many of whom go on living as refugees 10 months after the Russian invasion. In March, the BBC met a teenage girl fleeing the northern city of Kharkiv with her mother. Now, Nika Agafonova is living in the UK and coming to terms with no prospect of returning home anytime soon. Our Eastern Europe correspondent Sarah Rainsford went back to meet her.
Nobody here understands what I experience. I hope we never will understand what I experienced.
When Russia invaded her country, Nika played piano to drown out the sound of the explosions.
I was hearing bangs, bombs. It was quite loud. Yeah, unfortunately, Kharkiv is one of the most attacked cities in Ukraine.
We first met as her family were fleeing Kharkiv. Nika was leaving her city and friends behind to become a refugee.
Oh, it may be Misha.
She's now at school in England, and we went to see how she's doing.
I needed time to understand that now I'm in a safe place. I don't have air alarms every hour, and I don't need to think about what if next second bomb is going to be near me.
The bombing of Kharkiv was intense for months. Hundreds of missiles fired by Russian forces who only retreated in September. We found Nika's old school there, eerily empty. Her teacher still comes in, but she's the only one, because all lessons are online. Most of Nika's classmates fled too when war broke out here. Maria is trying to stay positive it'll end soon, but that's hard. Kharkiv life is still a long way from normal. I went to meet Nika's grandmother, who has no light or lift for hours a day, because Russian missiles are now targeting Ukraine's power supply. It was Nika's 16th birthday, so Tamara called her at school to tell her she loves and misses her and urge her to study well. It's the first time they've not celebrated together. What have they done to us? And what for, she wants to know. And she means Russia.
The auditions are really bad, but maybe it's going to be good.
Nika's meeting new friends in England, impressing new teachers, making the most of a life she never chose. But Kharkiv is never far from her thoughts.
I want my home back. I want my previous life back. But of course I know that it's not really possible. I would like peace and calmness in Ukraine, and I would like people to stop dying.
Sarah Rainsford, BBC News.
Let's take a look at the weather now. Here's Ben Rich. Ben.
Hi Rita, thank you. Good evening. It has been a rather chilly Boxing Day, cold after a Christmas day that was mild for most of us. In fact, today has been cold enough for snow in some parts of the UK, particularly in Scotland, and those snow showers have continued into the evening. That was the scene a little earlier on for a weather watcher in Aberdeenshire. The radar picture shows the showers falling as rain, sleet and snow, and even as those showers ease off into the night, it's going to be cold enough for some icy stretches on untreated surfaces across parts of Scotland and northern England. But out towards the west, a band of rain starts to spread its way in, and with that some milder air. So if you're waking up tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock, 9 degrees in Plymouth, still -1 in Aberdeen. And as this wet weather runs into that colder air, it could briefly give a spell of snow over the highest ground in northern England, say the North Pennines, the Cumbrian Fells, the southern uplands as well. This snowfall developing through the Grampians and the Highlands, well, this is likely to stick because the colder air is going to stick across northern Scotland for a little longer. But the rain further south will continue to fall, in fact turning really heavy across parts of northwest England, Wales, the southwest as we go through the day. Something brighter later into Northern Ireland. So that colder air trying to cling on in northeast Scotland, 4 degrees for Aberdeen, 11 there in the southwest of England. Now it looks like that rain is going to clear away during tomorrow evening, but actually look again. Instead, it bends back into this next frontal system, and that is Wednesday's weather maker. Another dose of heavy rain, and this will be rain because the air will be milder. The rain really piling up, actually, particularly over hills in the west of the UK as we go through this week, so that could cause 1 or 2 issues. It's going to be windy on Wednesday as well, but mild, a little bit chilly in the north of Scotland, but generally speaking 9 for Belfast, 13 for London. Now, Thursday, a sunshine and showers day, and then for Friday, well, here comes another rain-bearing weather system, and this area of low pressure could potentially be quite a deep affair, so that could bring some really quite strong winds. We'll keep an eye on that one for you. And then for the end of the year, and indeed the start of the next one, it stays relatively mild. There'll be some rain at times. It will often be windy, so the Boxing Day chill is not set to last. Rita.
Thank you very much, Ben. Well, that is all from us at BBC News at 10. You can, of course, keep up with all of the day's events on the BBC News channel. But from me and Ben and the 10 o'clock team, it's good night.